The most valuable thing Diane ever found was taped to the inside of a filing cabinet door, and it was a list of 8 things a man promised himself he would never do. She found it on a Tuesday night, around 11:30, with a vacuum cleaner in one hand and a bag of shredded paper in the other. Diane cleaned an office building in Columbus, Ohio. 4 floors, 12 years, same route every night, starting at the top and working down. The 4th floor belonged to a man named Richard, who owned 9 plumbing and heating supply stores across 3 states, and who at that point was worth a little over $4 million. Diane made $46,000 a year. She had never met him. She had cleaned his office 6 nights a week for 6 years, and she had never once been in the same room as the man. But she knew him the way you know somebody when you handle their trash. She knew he ate the same lunch 4 days out of 5. She knew he drove a pickup truck old enough to vote. She knew he never had a courier envelope on his desk, because he mailed everything himself, at the post office, on the way home. And that Tuesday, the top drawer of the cabinet was stuck open, and the door swung wide, and there it was. 1 sheet of paper, yellow at the edges, taped on with the kind of tape that has gone brown and hard. Handwritten, 8 lines, and at the top, in capital letters, 4 words. Things I don't do. Diane stood there for a long time. Long enough that the vacuum was still humming behind her and she didn't notice, because she had spent her whole adult life assuming that the difference between her and a man like Richard was a thing she didn't have. Brains. A degree. A gear in the head that some people are born with and some people aren't. And she was staring at a piece of paper that said the opposite. Here's what I want you to sit with, and I mean actually sit with it, because everything else in this video hangs off of it. When Ramsey Solutions ran the largest study of its kind ever done, 10,000 American millionaires, they found that 79% of them received no inheritance at all. Not a small one. None. And roughly 1 out of every 3 of them never earned 6 figures in a single working year of their entire career. Read that again. 1/3 of American millionaires never had a $100,000 year. Not once. And look, if that number just did something to you, I'd rather hear about it than not. There's a comment box down there somewhere, and the thing I'm actually curious about is whether you believe it. 1/3 of them, never 6 figures. Tell me if that changes how you look at somebody you know, because I think for most of us it quietly does. And if you want to be around for the rest of these, sticking with the channel is the easy way to do that. Totally up to you. I'm glad you're here either way. So if it isn't the inheritance and it isn't the income, what is it? Everyone wants it to be intelligence, because intelligence is a comfortable answer. If they're smarter than you, you're off the hook. You didn't fail, you just got dealt a different brain. I'm going to take that away from you in the next few minutes, and I'd like to apologize in advance. Because it isn't intelligence, it's a shorter menu. Wealthy people are not running a better decision-making engine than you. They are running a much smaller one, because they have already permanently removed a handful of options from the board, and they never revisit them, ever. Richard had a name for it, though he never said it out loud to anyone. Diane made one up later. She called it the never list. Most people build a to-do list. Save more, invest more, budget better, start Monday. And that list is exhausting, because every single item on it requires you to be disciplined again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, forever. A never list is the opposite. You make the decision one time, in one sitting, while you're calm. And then for the rest of your life, it isn't a decision anymore. It's just a fact about who you are. That's the whole trick. That's the entire secret. Rich people don't have more willpower than you. They have fewer open questions. So here's what this video is. I'm going to give you the 8 things, and I'm going to give you the dollar math under each one so you can see the size of the whole. I'm going to show you exactly what Diane did with them, on $46,000 a year, in a rented duplex, at 47 years old, with no degree, no inheritance, and no windfall. And I want to be very direct about something up front, because I don't like videos that make you wait for the disclaimer. Not one of these 8 requires you to earn more money. Not one. If you make $38,000 a year, you can start every single one of them this week. All right, but before the list, you need to know what Diane did next, because she didn't just copy the 8 lines. She did something smarter, and honestly slower, and it's the reason it worked. She studied the man. Not in a creepy way. In a research way. For about a year, she paid attention to a life she was already standing inside of every night, and she wrote down what she saw in a spiral notebook she kept in her car. The truck. 2009. Same truck the entire time she worked there. Clean, maintained, a small dent in the rear panel that never got fixed because it didn't need to be. The coat on the back of his door. One coat. All winter. Every winter. The lunch. A container from home. 4 days out of 5, and on Fridays, a receipt in the bin from a sandwich place 2 blocks over. $9 and change. Same order, apparently, because it was always the same total. No shopping bags. Ever. In 6 years. Diane emptied that man's wastebasket over 1,500 times and never once pulled out the plastic sleeve, the tag, the tissue paper, the receipt from something bought on a bad afternoon. And she thought about her own kitchen trash, and how it told a completely different story, and that one hurt a little. And then the books. This is the part that changed her, so stay with me here. Richard had a shelf, and it was not a decoration shelf. The spines were broken. Pages were folded. There were sticky notes going yellow inside them, and Diane wrote the titles down, and the next Saturday she walked into the Columbus Public Library with that list, and she requested every single one of them, for free, because that is a thing you are allowed to do and almost nobody does. The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley and William Danko, published in 1996, and Richard's copy had a page corner turned down on the section about what the average millionaire actually spends on a suit, $400 or less, and there was a line under it in pen. The Richest Man in Babylon, by George Clason, which was written in the 1920s and is basically a stack of parables about a guy who saves a tenth of what he earns. Thin book, under 150 pages. Richard's copy was the most beaten up of the lot. Your Money or Your Life, by Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez, which is where the idea comes from that everything you buy costs you hours of your actual life, not dollars. The Little Book of Common Sense Investing, by John Bogle, the man who built Vanguard, whose entire argument is that you should stop trying to be clever and just own the whole market for almost no fee. And a newer one, The Psychology of Money, by Morgan Housel, sitting on the end with a receipt still in it as a bookmark. 5 books. Diane read all 5 in about 4 months, at the kitchen table, after her shift, sometimes falling asleep on top of them. And she said something later that I've never been able to shake. She said there was nothing in any of those books that a 17-year-old couldn't understand. Not one idea. The math was 4th grade math. The hard part was never the understanding. Which is exactly the point of this whole video. Hold on to that, because we're getting to the list now. Number 1. They never finance a lifestyle they can't see the price of. In the first quarter of 2026, the average monthly payment on a new car in America hit $770. That is not a luxury car. That is the average. And in The Millionaire Next Door, when Stanley and Danko went and asked actual millionaires what they drove, a big chunk of them were buying used, and almost none of them were on the treadmill of replacing a vehicle every 3 years. Here's the number nobody puts in front of you. Take that $770. Don't spend it, put it in a plain index fund, and leave it alone for 25 years at an 8% average return. You end up with roughly $730,000. $730,000. That's the car. That's what the car actually costs. Not the sticker. The sticker is a distraction. The real price is the $730,000 version of you that never gets to exist. Richard's line under that section of the book, the one Diane copied into her notebook, was 4 words: buy the boring one. Now, I am nowhere close to done, and number 2 is the one that gets the most people in this audience, because it's the one that feels like a reward. Number 2, they never let a raise land in the checking account untouched. You get a raise, $400 more a month, let's say, after tax. And what happens is not that you go out and buy something stupid. That's the version people warn you about, and it's not the real danger. What actually happens is quieter than that. Groceries get a little nicer. You stop checking the price on the parking garage. The subscription you were going to cancel, you don't. 6 weeks later, the $400 is gone, and you cannot name a single thing it bought you. That's lifestyle creep. And it's the reason people making $140,000 are 3 weeks from panic. Because it happens every time, at every level, forever. The never list version is one sentence. The raise never touches the account. Half of it, or all of it if you can stand it, gets automatically moved before you ever see it. And here's the small number that should annoy you. Just $200 a month of a raise, invested, at 8%, for 20 years, is close to $118,000, from half of one raise, that you were never going to notice anyway. Diane got a shift differential in her third year, $91 a month. 91. She never saw a dollar of it in her checking account, not once, because it went straight into the brokerage the day the paperwork cleared. Number 3. They never buy anything for the purpose of being seen buying it. This is the one that sounds like a moral lecture and isn't. It's a spending category, and it's usually the biggest one in a struggling household. Not the mortgage, the audience. Stanley's data on this is almost funny. Half the millionaires in his study had never in their lives paid more than about $400 for a suit. These are people with 7 figures. They are not buying watches to communicate anything, because there is nobody they are trying to communicate with. So try this right now. Actually do it, don't just nod. Look around whatever room you're in, and find one thing you bought in the last 2 years. And ask a very uncomfortable question. If nobody could ever see it, would I still have paid that? Not would I still want it. Would I still have paid that? Some of your stuff passes, genuinely, and then some of it doesn't, and you'll know instantly, and there will be a little jolt in your chest when you land on it. That jolt is the whole video. That jolt is money. Number 4. They never borrow at consumer interest rates. Not never borrow. Never borrow at those rates. A mortgage at 6% and a credit card north of 20% are not the same species of thing. And treating them as the same is how people end up paying rent to a bank for a dinner they ate in 2022. $6,000 sitting on a card at 22% costs you around $1,320 a year in interest alone. $110 a month every month, going nowhere. Not paying down anything. Just rent on a mistake. And I know what some of you are thinking, because I'd be thinking it too. You're thinking, that's fine for people who have a cushion, but I'm carrying a balance because my transmission died, not because I'm irresponsible. And you're right. You're completely right, and I'm not going to insult you by pretending otherwise. That's exactly why number 5 exists, and why the order of this list matters more than the list. Quick thing, and then straight back into it. If any of this has been useful so far, a like costs you nothing, and genuinely helps it reach somebody who needs to hear it today. That's all. Back to work. Number 5. They never leave the free money on the table. If your employer matches your retirement contributions and you aren't taking the full match, you are declining a raise. There's no gentler way to put that. It is a raise with your name on it that you are choosing not to accept. In the Ramsey study, 8 out of 10 of those millionaires invested in their company's plan. 8 out of 10. That's not a strategy, that's just showing up. Run it on Diane's salary. $46,000 a year, a 4% match, is $1,840 a year of money she did not earn and did not miss. Leave that alone for 25 years at 8%, and it becomes about $134,000. $134,000 of free money, from a woman who cleans offices at night. Not her contribution. That's on top. That's just the part her employer handed her. Meanwhile, on the second floor of that same building, there was a regional manager named Dale. Dale made $138,000 a year, 3 times what Diane made. Dale drove something German and leased. Dale had a house that looked exactly like $138,000 a year is supposed to look. Dale was not enrolled in the plan. Not because he was against it, because he had been meaning to do the paperwork since 2019, and it kept sliding off the bottom of the list. Hold both of those people in your head. Diane, $46,000, enrolled. Dale, $138,000, meaning to. We're going to come back to them. Number 6. They never touch it, and they never sell it when it's scary. This is the one where being smart actually hurts you, which is why the title of this video says what it says. Clever people watch the market drop 18% and they think, I should do something. And doing something is almost always the expensive choice. Fidelity tracks this stuff across millions of accounts. In the first quarter of 2026, there were around 645,000 people sitting on $1 million or more inside a 401k. down about 3% from the quarter before, because the market wobbled and everybody's balance wobbled with it, but up 26% from a year earlier. Now hold on. Look at what those two numbers together are actually telling you. The people who stayed put through the wobble are the entire reason the 12-month number is up. Every single one of those 645,000 people watched their balance fall and did nothing. That's the qualification. That's the skill. Sitting there. And the average 401k balance in that same report was about $141,000, which tells you something else, quietly. Most people are not near $1 million. Most people are somewhere in the middle of the road still walking, including probably you. That's not a failure. That's just where the road is. Number 7. They never confuse a good income with being wealthy. Income is what comes in. Wealth is what stays. Those are two unrelated numbers, and almost everyone you know uses the first one to guess at the second one, which is why almost everyone you know is wrong about who around them is actually okay. That Ramsey number from the top of the video deserves a second pass now that you've got context. 1 in 3 of those millionaires never made 6 figures in any year of their career. Not their best year, not their last year before retiring. Never. And on the other side of it, there are people pulling $300,000 a year who could not survive 4 months of unemployment. You have met both of these people. You have probably envied the wrong one. Richard's version of this, according to the note Diane found in the margin of his Babylon book, was blunt to the point of rude. He'd written, "A big income is a bigger hose. It does not mean you own a bucket." Number 8. They never wait for the thing that's going to fix it. The lottery, the inheritance, the promotion, the lawsuit, the business idea, the year that finally goes right. 79% of those 10,000 millionaires got nothing from anyone, and every single one of them, at some point, was standing exactly where you are, with an income that felt too small to matter, and a choice about whether to start with the amount they had, or wait for an amount that felt respectable. There is no respectable amount. That's the thing. There is no starting line that arrives with a ribbon on it. There is only a Tuesday where you either move $60 or you don't. So that's the 8. Now let me tell you what Diane actually did, because she did not do all 8 at once, and I don't want you to either. Week 1, she did one thing. She opened the enrollment portal at work on a break room computer and took the full match. It took 11 minutes, and she had been putting it off for 9 years. 9 years, 11 minutes. That month, she did the audit. She printed 3 months of statements, on paper, with a pen in her hand, and she circled every single thing she could not remember buying. Not the ones she regretted, the ones she couldn't remember at all. It came to $240 a month. $240 of pure fog. That quarter, she automated. $600 a month, out on the second, into a broad index fund, before rent, before groceries, before she could form an opinion about it. And I want to give you the honest number on that, because it's the whole video and it's not flashy. $600 a month, at 8%, for 22 years, is roughly $430,000. $430,000. From a night cleaner in Ohio. No inheritance, no degree, no windfall, no side hustle, nobody in her family who had ever owned a share of anything. And that year, she wrote her own list. 8 lines, on a card, taped inside her kitchen cabinet where the cereal goes, so she'd see it every single morning before she was awake enough to argue with it. Now, do you want to know how it ended? Diane never told Richard she'd read his list. Not once. In the 11 more years she worked there. It felt like something she wasn't supposed to have. Richard sold the stores and retired, and the last night he left a box in the middle of the office floor with a note on top that just said, "For whoever cleans up after me." It was the books, all 5 of them, sticky notes still inside. Dale, the regional manager on the second floor, is still working. He's 58. He's fine, actually. He's not a cautionary tale. He's not broke. He just has no exit. He has a house that photographs well and a number in a retirement account that he does not say out loud, and every raise he ever got is currently invisible, absorbed into a life he can't downshift out of, without a conversation with his wife that he does not want to have. Diane is 58 too. Same age. She still rents. Same duplex, actually, because she likes it and the landlord is decent. But last spring, her sister got sick in Arizona, and Diane got on a plane on a Thursday and stayed for 5 weeks, and she did not do arithmetic on the plane. That's it. That's the whole payoff. There was no calculation, there was no calling anyone, there was no deciding what would have to be given up in order for her to go be with her sister. That is what the money is for. Not the number, the plane ticket you buy without thinking, the bad news you can absorb, the job you can leave, the 2 in the morning where you wake up and your brain reaches around for the thing it's supposed to be afraid of and comes back with nothing. People think wealth is a feeling of abundance. It isn't. Nobody who has it describes it that way. What they describe is the absence of a specific low hum they used to live with and stopped noticing until it was gone. And the 8 things on that list are not 8 sacrifices. That's the part I'd fight somebody about. They're 8 arguments you never have to have with yourself again. 8 decisions you make once, on one afternoon, and then you get to stop spending energy on for the next 30 years. That's not deprivation. That's the cheapest freedom available to a normal person. If any of this landed, tell me which of the 8 is the one you already knew you were failing. Just the number. I read them, and honestly, the comments on these are the best part of doing this. And if this is the sort of thing you want showing up in your feed, subscribing helps. Only if you want it. I'll leave you with the filing cabinet. Because here's what Diane figured out years later, standing in front of her own kitchen cabinet with her own index card taped to the inside of the door. Richard didn't tape that list where he could show it to anyone. It was inside a drawer, on the inside of the door, facing in. Nobody was ever supposed to see it. He wasn't performing discipline. He wrote it for the version of himself who would open that drawer on a bad day and want to do something expensive about it. That list wasn't advice. It was a fence. And he built it while he was calm so it would hold while he wasn't. You can write yours tonight. 8 lines, a pen, the back of an envelope. It doesn't have to be my 8. It just has to be yours, and it has to be specific enough that future you can't argue with it. Now, there's a question I skipped on purpose this whole video, and a lot of you noticed. I told you Diane put $600 a month into a broad index fund, and I never explained what that means, or where you actually open one, or how somebody with no experience picks the thing they'll be sitting in for 22 years without touching it. That's the next video. And if I'm being straight with you, this one was step 1. That one's step 2.